We'll get to our final panellist, who is Emily McDonald, a mental health, social worker and family therapist for 25 years across a range of sectors, children and families, adult mental health, child protection, family violence, community health and family law services. She's supervised and lectured in mental health and social work, and is also an experienced manager and practitioner with a background leading and implementing whole of organisational practice and service design. She's extensive skills in developing innovative models, programs and services and continuous improvement processes that are designed to place clients at the centre of practice. And Lynette just talked about, and so did Annette, about putting children first and how motivating that is for families. They nearly always come for services when they've got a problem for their kids, not themselves, and it's important. Emily has a dedication to ensuring that practice and service developments are aligned to sector progressions and leading to broader systems change. And Emily's now working for us and is helping us in our journey in the evolution of our open portal and our research to practice hub. And we've asked her today to just give some reflections, because she's brand new pretty much. And it's really interesting asking her from a sector perspective, coming into the peak body, what she's seeing externally, but also what the possibilities are, because actually there is a lot going on. And so over to you, Emily. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deb. Thanks very much. And also I just actually want to start by acknowledging the incredible work that is going on, first of all with Bethany, with CEI, and also with PRC, with Windermere. It's absolutely fantastic, and having been kind of through two whole of organisational approaches to kind of practice and service development change, I'm totally across how long it takes and the detail required in order to really see kind of practice change occur. But yes, Deb has asked me to shift gears a little bit and locate this particular initiative in a broader context, and that context sits with a lot of the DHHS reforms that drive our work, but also in terms of the membership of the Centre for Excellence in Child and Family Welfare. What I'm going to be talking about is locating this initiative in a broader context of the Centre's work. Okay, so I'm hoping to do two things over the next 10 minutes, and both of which relate to conveying some of the Centre's most recent work and planning about the next steps for these initiatives that seek to support the Centre to consistently deliver safe, effective, connected and person-centred services. So in terms of the reforms, it's always really interesting, and I've actually been privileged over the last month or so, being a part of the Centre now, to listen to the language that's used from managers and team leaders and practitioners who visit the Centre in terms of how they are experiencing the initiatives and a lot of the reforms that are going on, and particularly around implementation. These initiatives don't, of course, exist in a vacuum, and there are many complexities within organisations and across local systems that often require a multi-pronged approach. So just this week, Catherine and I have facilitated a session with statewide family services and Orange Door team leaders about their critical priorities for implementation in 2020. And the issues that we hear consistently, and I know that people who work at the Centre consistently talk about, is that they relate to both practice quality and development, but also to the processes between the systems, such as the Orange Door, Child Protection, Family Services and Family Violence. So building on the strengths of open and listening to the feedback from our networks and our membership, and synthesising the learnings from the Centre's project work on EPB and evidence-based and informed practice, we've developed a new approach over the last month that we're very excited about. There isn't the space today to kind of unpack the kind of full approach, but the first thing I wanted to do is to highlight our broad concept to this new approach at the Centre. Okay. So, and I might say that we're still, probably need to acknowledge here, we're still actually talking to Deb about this. So, and Deb is very, very supportive of it. But
she's not telling everybody everything.
That's right. Yes, we're still.
We're going to talk to the department.
That's right. There's a long journey to go,
Yeah,
but
this is just early.
it is. It's conceptual and aspirational. Okay, so in the Centre's newly formed Research to Practice Hub, moving forward, we intend to respond to 3 critical areas that we believe will support better outcomes for children and families. The first, of course, everybody in the room is here for and is well across. So that's building capacity for child and family services sector to deliver evidence-based and informed practices and programs with an outcomes focus. This is what we refer to as our vertical initiative. So this is, we support organisations with their projects, their evaluations, research, practice development projects to achieve their goals for positive outcomes for children and young people and their families. However, the second area is also to support cross-sector initiatives and multi-agency responses locally and more systemically to work with children and families, either in early intervention or more targeted ones. This is what we refer to as our horizontal initiative, supporting organisations to work collaboratively to achieve their goals across different sectors. And finally, raising the client voice in how we identify, design, deliver and evaluate programs and services. So in doing this, the Research to Practice Hub pays particular attention to the voice of the child and the young person, and this is the third strategy that will wrap around our vertical and horizontal initiatives. This is actually what our members ask of us, to support and link the above priorities and initiatives in a contextual, integrated and holistic way, rather than them working in parallel to each other. So put simply, catchment data of our members tell us that if we're going to build capacity for our sector to deliver EPBs or evidence-informed practice or the micro skills that we've been talking about today, we also want to ensure that the children and families are actually getting to these services. In many of our catchments, families are circling around the systems and not actually entering services due to processes that are not working so well. So the second thing I want to do today is to prompt, I guess, the next stage of the journey for our vertical initiative. There we go. Okay. So in reviewing the current reforms that relate to the child and family services sector, the key ones that we're all working on are, of course, the evidence-based work, the child and family system reform approach with the 4 pillars, the first of which relates to client experience and strong emphasis on co-participation and co-design. There's the review and the refreshing of the best interest case practice model, the BICM as it's referred to, a large focus of which has been shifting the language to more client-centred or directed practice. And of course the new departmental Voice of the Client framework, which was released in October last year. So the thread that runs through all of these areas is in terms of the reform, is asking the sector to come up with ways, innovative or interesting ways to consult, collaborate and gain feedback from our clients, which is a good thing because there's a large and growing number of RCT trials that show that gaining feedback from clients demonstrates increased client engagement, high rates of client retention, reduction in client disengagement, which is important in our sector, and reliable longer-term improvement in client outcomes. So the next logical step in the journey of organisational and practitioner development is to introduce the benefits of using client feedback to enhance the therapeutic alliance and to routinely and or frequently monitor and track improvements and outcomes of our work. But that's as we are doing it, not just at the end. So put simply, the best way to check that the therapeutic alliance is on track or that there are improvements occurring is to actually ask our clients. So this can and may involve applying feedback-informed practices or evidence-based tools that routinely or formally solicit feedback from clients regarding the therapeutic alliance, regarding improvements and regarding outcomes. And then, of course, the idea being is that we would use this resulting information in supervision to inform and tailor our service delivery. So we're adjusting the practice as we go regularly throughout service delivery. So this is an overarching framework that can be used with any evidence-based program or practice. Using this framework gives the practitioner the best chance of activating their EPB or their evidence-based practice and it working well for people. It involves raising the client voice in a very directive way, and it requires us to be accountable in a very different way as well. So finally, I just wanted to touch on what this would look like in terms of organisational outcomes framework design. And I think it is important to note that most outcomes frameworks measure program outcomes or program impact. And I think it's key for us today, given what we're talking about with this vertical initiative, is that we do think about how to embed client feedback measures into our outcomes frameworks in order to measure our practice impact. And we think that this is important because if we're going to align our practice and program development towards current policies outlined in the reforms that relate to client experience and client-directed work, we need to develop practical ways of routinely gaining feedback from our clients. Thank you.
She's done a lot in a few weeks.